Welcome to The Joy Adventure. I'm Jeanette Joy Fisher with the Joy TV network, and today we're interviewing Dave Stech, international best-selling author, who has retired 3 times and worked 20 years before that with Disney and Kodak, and I'm just thrilled to have you here. Dave, you talked about the happiness quotient. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, if you stop and ask yourself, why is it that we're here? Why is it that we do what we do every day? In my view, it's all about just being happier. I mean, that's why you do what you do. It's why I do what I do. And from my perspective, the only 3 things I ever want to do when I wake up in the morning are real simple. I want to make money, I want to have fun, and I want to do good. Now, if I can do all 3 of those things at once, it's like the trifecta. But at least for me, it's really about those. And I always suggest to people that you want to start with having fun, but you really want to focus on making money. Because if you can make more money, it gives you latitude and freedom that you otherwise wouldn't have. So you can make more money, you can have more fun, you can do more good, and oh, by the way, make more money. And my perspective on it is real simple, that there are a lot of people in America right now that are struggling. Over 5 million people are underwater on their homes. And I know what it's like because I lived in a trailer park for the first 12 years of my life. And I remember my dad getting hurt when he was working on the job, and for 22 months he was out of work, and for 22 months we ate mayonnaise sandwiches and drank water every day. So I know what it's like for people to struggle, and it's been a lot of years since I grew up in that trailer park, but now I'm in the good fortune of having an opportunity to make a difference in people's lives. And I think it starts with happiness.
And so how do you make a difference in people's lives?
Well, I do 2 things. One, I'm writing a book, as you know, called The Power of 6, which we're expecting great things from. And it's really all about fewer, deeper relationships that allow you to get to where you're trying to go quicker. And the second thing is, I have to make money somehow, so for me, having early retired 3 times, I don't need to do anything that I don't want to do. So what do? I focus personally on buying America while it's on sale. Right now is the best time in our country's 234-year history to get filthy, stinking rich, and I plan on doing just that. And for me, I don't really look at it like I used to, where I went through a stage of what I call striving and really trying to get to the point where I could just survive. I'm really now to the point where I'm thriving. And that's where I want everybody else to be. And Warren Buffett's at a stage even a little higher than I am, where he just wants to matter. So I think if you and I can survive first, thrive second, and matter third, it's going to be a great life. And for me, I'm just about thriving and mattering right now and trying to matter in other people's lives.
I know that you give free webinars on real estate investing. Why do you not charge for those?
Yeah, I just don't believe, given the state of the economy right now, that I want to be in the business of selling anything. I don't want anyone to have to buy anything. I don't want them to have to get excited under the ether of some promoter who's telling you, run to the back of the room and buy what I've got. I don't really want to do that. I really believe that if I share something of value, I'll attract better people in my life. And that's really what the Power of 6 has done for me. So I really share and inspire and attract rather than pitch and close. And for me, it just works because I'm not a sales guy in the traditional sense. I just like partners. I like people who can help me get to where I'm going quicker while I help them. So I don't charge anything for any of the webinars. I speak, last week I did 5 webinars and I spoke at 3 live events. Didn't sell anything, didn't make a penny, but I do think I made a difference in people's lives. And my goal is real simple. I want to educate 100,000 people, 100,000 investors in the next 12 months so that they can be the victors, not the victims, in the next 12 months and not go through what everybody's gone through for the last 2 years.
Now, you were telling me earlier about a home that you bought in Las Vegas. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because it goes against what everybody thinks of how to make money.
Yeah, exactly. It's really odd because had you asked me 3 months ago, would I have ever invested in a luxury home? I would have said, are you kidding me? Absolutely not. Because when I think luxury, I think $1 million and up. or multi-million-dollar homes. And anyone in their right mind would say, there's no way that you'll get positive cash flow on a multi-million-dollar home. And they're right. Until now. They're wrong.
Okay.
And I was wrong because I never really looked at it that way. Well, I just did a deal with my son, who I'm thrilled to be working with now after he finished grad school at Stanford. And we're working together to try to buy America while it's on sale and also bring other investors together to partner with us. So for example, we bought a home that was valued at somewhere between $2 and $3 million. And because the bank had just taken it back, we were able to negotiate and buy it for $618,600. In our first month, we got $11,000 in rent. In our second month, we got $14,000, and we just got a rental for 3 months for $45,000 in total. Now, how can you do that? Through short-term vacation and corporate rentals. I didn't even really know what that was. 3 months ago, I couldn't spell vacation rental, and now I are one. So it's just funny how things kind of come into your life, and my perspective really has come down to take what the market gives you. Right now, the market is giving you stuff, especially in the real estate space, that you and I would have never done before and may never do in the future. But for now, it's a great way to just add a zero to both your net income and your income.
Now tell me about just adding a zero.
Well, I've got this simple philosophy, and it's contrarian to everything that you've ever heard, which is that you can get rich overnight. And not only do I not believe that you can get rich overnight, but I know that those gurus who preach that you can get rich quick are just full of it. Because at the end of the day, you can't. I mean, the average millionaire, in really the last 50 years, the average millionaire is 58 years old. And the average, what's called emerging affluent, someone who's on their way to millionairehood, is about 49 years old. So when you stop and think of that, you don't get rich overnight. You get rich slowly and methodically. And all you need are two things. You need a plan and you need people. And at least for me, I've really focused on the latter. I want to have fewer, better people in my life to do fewer, bigger deals with. And so for me, just adding a zero is just that. Jeanette, if I could help you add a zero to either your income or your net worth, would you put me on your Christmas card list forever?
Oh, yes. You already are on my Christmas card list forever.
Well, that's really what I mean by it. It just shouldn't come quick. It won't come quick. Does that mean you have to wait until you're 58? No, I didn't, and you shouldn't, nor should anyone else who's listening.
Now, what would you say to people who don't have $618,000 to go and buy a house?
That's a great question, because it wasn't something that I intended on doing on my own. I partnered with others. So in this particular case, I partnered with 4 other investors. Actually, 1 had been to one of my webinars, and 3 had heard me speak at live events. And the 4 of them raised their hand and said, we're interested. Now, this was virtual because we were on a webinar, but they raised their hands and they said, we'd like to do what you do, but you've forgotten more about what you do than we'll ever know. So could you help us? And I said, yeah, because there are really 3 elements to what I call the money triad. The first is you've got to generate cash. You and I need cash. We need our lifestyle that we need to manage, and we also need to take a portion of that and invest it. The second thing we want to do is accumulate wealth. And the third thing we want to do is keep both. So if we can generate cash and accumulate wealth and keep as much of both as possible, we're really on the right road. So in their case, I explained to them, look, I can't generate cash like you do. One of them was a doctor, and one of them was a nurse, and one of them was a teacher. I can't do those things. I don't teach, I don't fix broken legs, I don't do those things. They generate the cash. What I try to do is partner with people who either have cash or credit or income who'd like to come to me because I may know something that they don't. I've never lost a penny in real estate in 30 years. I don't intend on ever losing a penny myself. Could it happen? Sure, but I don't anticipate it will. So my goal is to take my knowledge and partner with other people who have resources, and both of us get to where we're going quicker.
Tell us a little bit about your upcoming best-selling book.
The Power of 6. The power of 6 is what I call one of my Jerry Maguire epiphanies. I mean, it wasn't something that I ever expected or intended on, but one day I had a Palm Pilot. You remember the old Palm Pilots?
I remember this. This is a great story.
Yeah. Well, I had a Palm Pilot, and this is in the days before PDAs, and cell phones were one and the same. You had a PDA, in my case a Palm 5X, and you had a cell phone, and never the two should meet. Well, one morning I woke up and my PDA's battery was dead. So my Palm had crashed on me. And so I went down to Radio Shack, grabbed a battery, came back, put it in, everything booted up just fine. That was the good news. The bad news was I lost all the memory. So I had 3,000 contacts in there that just went poof. And when I tell this story to audiences, I always ask people to raise their hand. How many people have had this happen to them before? And I don't know if you have, but between 20 and 30% of people everywhere have had that happen before. So I didn't realize that when it first happened to me. I thought I was the only guy in the world this had ever happened to. And it was really, really traumatic for me. I mean, I was sick. Imagine losing 3,000 contacts that you'd spent your life trying to create. So I was actually having difficulty sleeping one night, and I woke up in the middle of the night with one of these Jerry Maguire epiphanies, and I realized it really didn't matter. I mean, at the end of it all, 80% of the people who were in my database or in my contact list really weren't going to make any difference in my life, and I wasn't in theirs. In fact, I couldn't remember half of them. And of the other 20%, 80% of those, or 16%, really do something with their life. I mean, they strive for more for themselves and their family, and 4% do something big. And so I said, what am I? Am I in the 80? Am I in the 16? Or am I in the 4? And I really felt like I was in the 16, but I was knocking on the 4 door. So I said, what can I do to get over the hump? And what I realized was that I just needed fewer better people in my life, and I needed to do fewer bigger deals. And so I reached out to people who I thought were impossible to reach out to and started developing a relationship. And I gave unconditionally to them, and they ended up giving back to me. And at the end of the day, there were kind of 6 key elements that came as a result of that that became the power of 6.
And why not the power of 7?
Good question. And at the time, when the power of 6 kind of came to me, it was a power of 1. I had to start with one person. But 6 just felt manageable. And I've now created this system where myself and 6 people and our 6 people, I'm not talking about multi-level marketing, just 6 people and 36 people, 42 people can almost get anything done that they'd ever want. And a few years later, I was the caregiver for my dad during my 3rd early retirement. And he actually passed away on 6/6/06. And that's why I'm writing the book, The Power of 6, as a legacy to him, and really in memory of him, and primarily as a legacy to my sons, who I think need to understand, as all people do, that it's all about fewer, deeper relationships and forgetting the masses of asses.
I like the way you put that. So what motivates you every day to do what you do?
That's a great question. I guess my desire for more. I don't feel like it's just a desire on my part. I feel like it's an obligation. You know, I grew up in a trailer, you know, and my parents wanted more for me. And I've done pretty well. And now my sons are starting their careers. One graduated from Berkeley and the other from Stanford, so we're a house divided, but they're on their ways now. And I've got an obligation to them. I've got an obligation to you. I've got an obligation to everybody that I touch to be more, because it rubs off on others. So for me, if I can do more in terms of doing good, if I can have more fun, and if I can make more money, I can do more good and have more fun. And that's what motivates me every day, because as you know, I don't need the money. I really just want to make a difference. I want to matter.
And you want to buy America while it's on sale.
Absolutely. Why not?
So what does joy mean to you?
Joy. When I think joy, I think my sons. I mean, I can remember when my oldest son was born, I asked myself, do you want to be a biological father or a great dad? And that's really a choice we all make. When you had your children, you had to make a decision. Do I want to be a biological mother, or do I want to be a great mom? And for me, there is no option. It's about being a great dad. In fact, I remember when I moved from New York in one of those big jobs to relocating to San Diego to get from corporate life to quality of life, I started walking my kids to school every morning, walking them home every morning, or every afternoon, coaching them in their sports at night. And I took 2 life sabbaticals with each of my kids. Both of them turned out to be 6 months during their college quest. And I realized that I mattered. There were other people out there who were biological parents but weren't really great dads and moms. And it didn't necessarily mean they were bad people. It just meant that they were too busy for the most important thing in their life. And I wasn't about to let that happen. So my joy comes from my kids.
Well, just wait until you have grandchildren.
Oh my. Then I'll be consumed.
Then you won't be buying houses every day.
Exactly, exactly.
How do you determine who the 6 people you are going to work with are?
That's a great question, because all of us need to ask ourselves, who is it that we allow into our life, and who do we try to get rid of in our life? And while that may sound a little mercenary, it really isn't. I mean, the truth is, the more we say no, the greater the time we'll have on the yeses. So for me, it's really important for me to have fewer, deeper relationships rather than a lot of people in my life. That's not important to me. So what do I mean by fewer, deeper relationships? And to your point, how do I pick those people? I have 6 what I call non-negotiable filters. If people don't meet all of these 6 filters, I really don't want them in my life. And when you hear them, you're going to ask, how in the heck do you find people who meet all those filters? So let me just share them with you. The first is, I only work with people who are equal to or better than me, or who have complementary or synergistic skill sets. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you're trying to get better, you're trying to play with better people. For me, it's about finding people who are equal to or better than me at what I do, or who have complementary or synergistic skill sets. That's really important, because if I'm going to raise the level of my game, I need people bringing me along. I need people pulling on me. The second is, I only deal with people who have 6 filters that are absolutely strict, and I just don't deviate from these filters. Number 1, they can't have uncontrolled egos. Number 2, they can't have uncontrolled greed. Number 3, they must be implicitly trustworthy. Number 4, they've got to be exceptionally competent at what they do. 5, they've got to play to win. I'm only in it to win. I don't want to lose. And number 6, I've got to like them. Now, often when I tell people what those 6 filters are, they ask themselves, how am I going to ever meet anybody who meets all 6 of those filters? And the answer is, it's difficult. But the good news is, you only need 6. So there are 6 people in your life, in my life, and maybe even people that you don't yet know, but you need to find them. Because if you can get that 6 together, they're going to help you get to where you're going quicker. And the other thing is that those 6 will not allow you to fail. And that's what I've found. So number 1, they've got to be equal to or better than you at what you do. Number 2, they've got to meet those 6 filters. And number 3, they've got to be givers, not takers. I have rid my life of all the takers and the donut eaters and the skull suckers and the brain pickers and the masses of asses in my life. And I just focus on givers. Givers who meet those first 2 sets of filters, and then number 3, they're givers, not takers. The fourth thing is, to my way of thinking, you've got to be willing to find 6 people too. The real power in the power of 6 is not in my 6, but in my 6's 6. Because if they're equal to or better than my 6, that means my 6 plus that round of 36 becomes 42 people who I can go into battle with and never lose. The fifth thing is, they've got to absolutely be committed to me as I am to them. I mean, I want people who are not only committed, but they perform every year. I actually replace one of my 6, if I need to, once a year. And people think, oh my God, you throw somebody under the bus? No, that's not what I do. But if for any reason their life has changed, and it usually comes in the form of death or divorce or disaster or downsizing, if that happens and they can't focus or they don't want help just now, they just want to check out, I can't do much about that. So at least for me, I'm really looking for people who are committed to continue to play at a very high level. And the last and probably most important thing is I like people whose goals are in alignment with mine. Because if I can find people who really are passionate about what I am and me passionate about what they do, we can't be stopped. And we haven't been. So the power of 6 is able to do 7-figure deals in 10-minute phone calls.
But you said you can't get rich overnight.
Well, we can now get richer overnight
Okay.
because we've already started at a pretty high level. But it took me a lot of years to get to that point. And one of the things I always like to think about is, where are you in your life? You know, I mean, most Americans don't stop and think for a minute that the average American makes very, very little money because there are a lot of people who are struggling right now. But the upper 10% of America probably make over 100,000 or more. Well, I'm one of them. I make a lot more than that. So wouldn't I be on a scale of 1 to 10 at a 9 or a 10? So think about that for a minute. If I'm, let's say, at a 9, and I surround myself with people who are equal to or better than me, and they surround themselves with people who are equal to or better than them, how far am I from the top? And the answer is I'm not. I'm like reaching distance. And so for me, I just surround myself with fewer better people, do fewer bigger deals, have fewer more fun, and do a lot more good.
And what do you do that is for the good of mankind?
Well, I have what I call my selfish good, and my selfish good is my family and my friends. And then I have the other good. And the other good for me right now is 2 things. One, my wife and I rescue animals. We, at any one point in time, will have a lot of animals running around our nice home. But I do that because we get joy out of them, and they get joy because they're all rescues. And if it weren't for us, they wouldn't be walking around on their 4 legs right now. And the second thing is I'm educating investors. I think I mentioned to you earlier, I'm trying to educate 100,000 investors for free over the next 12 months to make sure that in the next economic growth period, they don't become the victims, they're the victors. And that's a legacy that I think I can help other people with by influencing the influencer.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Jeanette Joy Show, and thank you, Dave, for being with us. For more information, please see joytvnetwork.com.